which we fought hard for. We're up to 259 miles right now of great, powerful wall that's really working, because if you look at the numbers, in addition to the fact that Mexico, for various reasons, has 27,000 soldiers on our southern border to keep people out of our country. And I appreciate it. We had a great meeting last week with the president of Mexico, great guy, friend of mine, become a friend of mine. A lot of people thought that couldn't happen because we're very opposite in terms of our views, maybe even in terms of our temperament, but he's a great guy and he's a friend of mine, and they've been terrific. Mexico has been terrific. 27,000 soldiers on our border, Mexican soldiers, and we have great, great numbers. We get rid of so many different things. Catch and release is gone. So many different things have taken place. We used to catch them, take their name, and release them into our country. We don't do that anymore. We now release them back where they came from. Sometimes we'll bring them back to their country. Grant work permits for illegal aliens. So if you come in illegally, you get a work permit. People that live here don't get work permits, in many cases. Provide taxpayer subsidies and welfare for illegal aliens and new immigrants. So we want to provide taxpayer subsidies and welfare for people that come into our country illegally, illegal immigrants. They want government health care for all illegal aliens. This is part of their plan. I'm not making this up. This is all down in their plan from last week. And this is good compared to what I heard today. Federal student aid and free community college for illegal aliens. What do you think about that? Federal student aid and free community college. We're going to have every person in the world pouring into our country from all over the world. And by the way, the wall was so timely because it stopped people coming in from heavily infected areas of Mexico. If we had that, we would be in trouble like you wouldn't believe. You wouldn't believe. And remember, cases is different than deaths. And cases we give you because our testing is the best in the world. And by the way, by far the most. 45 million. Find out which country tested 45 million people. If China, if Russia, if India tested 45 million people, or if they did tests like we did, check out how many cases they'd have. But it's still, we've done a great job, get no credit for it, and I don't want the credit. I want the people that have done this great job, the people that have done such an incredible job on building the ventilators and doing the testing and building a testing platform that's been amazing. We have many platforms. Many companies have come up with different forms of tests. When we started, there was no such thing. Sign new immigrants up for welfare immediately. This is Joe Biden. So they walk off and they come in and they put a foot into our land and we sign up new immigrants up for welfare. We sign them up immediately. They get welfare benefits. United States citizens don't get what they're looking to give illegal immigrants. Think of that. Sign up. It's hard to believe I'm even reading that. New immigrants for welfare immediately. Not to mention the cost of this, which is incalculable. The cost of this is so crazy. End requirement for immigrant self-sufficiency and maximize their welfare. Now, this is us writing this. Who's not coming to the United States? Every person from South America is going to pour in. Every person from other countries, they're going to be pouring in. End requirement, think of that, for immigrant self-sufficiency. And remember to maximize welfare. So we're giving a maximum. Then we have massively expand immigration during a global pandemic, taking jobs from unemployed Americans. End all travel bans, including from jihadist regions. So now we have travel bans. A lot of you said I didn't get the travel ban, and you were wrong. We got the travel ban. We lost in the Ninth Circuit. We lost again in the Ninth Circuit, and then we won in the Supreme Court. We have a very strong travel ban. And we don't want people that are going to come in and blow up our cities, do things. And frankly, with the with the liberal Democrats running the cities that we do have where they do have problems, maybe they wouldn't mind, but I would mind, and the people of this country mind. So listen to this. End all travel bans. He's talking about the ban that I won, that everybody said I didn't win. They said I didn't win because in the lower court we lost, that we lost in the appellate division, and then we won in the Supreme Court. So he said he lost. And they're right at the lower level. But in the meantime, we won at the Supreme Court. So it's in effect, but they didn't say that. They said he lost, which again is fake news, but that's the way they do it. So end all travel bans, including from jihadist regions, they specified that. Grant mass amnesty. Everybody gets amnesty, mass amnesty. Think of that. And this is create a roadmap to citizenship for massive, massive numbers. And we're not talking about DACA because I'm going to take care of DACA much better than the Democrats did. The Democrats had their chance, and they blew it. But we're going to take care of DACA because I'm going to be doing, in the not-too-distant future, pretty soon, I'm going to be signing a new immigration action, very, very big merit-based immigration action that based on the DACA decision, I'll be able to do. Vastly expand low-skilled immigration to the United States. So they want a lot of people come in with low skills. I like merit. Think of that. Vastly expand low-skilled immigration to the United States. These are the things that are in the plan. This is Biden. Biden's gone radical left. Increase refugee admissions by 700%. Huh. That's a lot. By 700%. Nobody's ever heard of such a thing. Increase refugee admissions by 700%. Abolish law enforcement as we know it. I think the police do an incredible job in this country. And you're going to have a rogue, terrible cop on occasion, like you do in any industry, in any business, in any profession. But I think they do an incredible job. Abolish law enforcement as we know it. End cash bail. No bail. Just, we let you right out. Look at what's happened to New York. Crime is up. Shootings are up at numbers that nobody's ever seen before. Look at Chicago. What a disaster. And we're waiting for them to call us because we're all set to go. We have the FBI. We have Homeland Security. We have everybody ready to go. We have the National Guard. They're all ready to go. End cash bail, releasing dangerous criminals onto our streets. Cash bail. New York just did that. Other places have done it. They haven't turned out too good. Abolish completely the death penalty. And I know there's a lot of debate on the death penalty, and there has been for a long time, but sometimes you use the death penalty, depending on the crime. You know what happened today with regard to the death penalty. Appoint social justice prosecutors in order to free violent criminals. So they want to appoint social justice prosecutors to free violent criminals. End mandatory minimums. And that's by empowering judges to determine appropriate sentences, by fighting to repeal mandatory minimums at the federal level and give states incentives to repeal their mandatory minimums. We could go on for days. Incentivize prison closure. So they want to close our prisons. They now want to abolish our police departments. They want to abolish our prisons, I guess. Incentivize jail and prison closures as populations decline. Ensure the resources saved are invested directly into those communities. So they want to close them rather than have them for some very bad people, people that are not going to behave when they get out. You see that in New York. They allowed a lot of criminals out, and those criminals are causing havoc. And then they got rid of their incredible and legendary crime squad. And bad things are happening in New York. Bad things are happening. I love New York. I hate to see what's going on. End solitary confinement. Free federal housing for former inmates. So federal housing now can go to inmates, former inmates. Rejoin Paris Climate Accord and seek an even higher level of restrictions. Oh, I didn't notice that. Oh, I see. So they want to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, and they want to seek an even higher level of restriction. In other words, make it worse than it was. Mandate net zero carbon emissions for homes, offices, and all new buildings by 2030. That basically means no windows, no nothing. It's very hard to do. I tell people when they want to go into some of these buildings, how are your eyes? Because they won't be good in 5 years. And I hope you don't mind cold office space in the winter and warm office space in the summer, because your air conditioning is not the same as the good old days. Mandate zero carbon emissions from power plants by 2035. Zero. We're talking about zero. Nothing can go in the air. Mandate net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And I believe he's changing that. He's bringing it down. He wants no petroleum product. He wants no oil or gas. I don't think Texas is going to do too well. They're going to get rid of about 7 million jobs if you go by the Biden plan. I don't think that Oklahoma, North Dakota, Pennsylvania are going to be too happy with that, and many other states, Ohio. Mandate all 500,000 school buses and all 3 million government vehicles be changed to zero-emission vehicles within 5 years. I've heard of worse than that. Install 500,000 taxpayer-funded charging stations nationwide. Here's a bad one, really bad one. End school choice. There is nothing that the African American community wants more than school choice. And mothers and fathers are going to be very happy to see him be defeated just on that alone. End school choice. So Joe Biden wants to end school choice. End tax credit scholarships serving disadvantaged students in 26 states. Oppose 14 million Americans with education savings accounts. And get rid of school choice, having to do with school choice. Eliminate school choice in Washington, D.C. You know what they've done in Washington. They have some incredible example right here. Example. I know of one example. I think they have a number of them, but one is incredible. Abolish all charter schools. Charter schools are doing great. Ban funding for charter schools in poor neighborhoods. We don't want charter schools in poor neighborhoods. Well, that's not fair. Abolish educational standards. Abolish in the suburbs. You're going to abolish the suburbs with this. Enforce Obama-Biden's radical AFFH. That's the AFFH regulation that threatens to strip localities of federal affordable housing funds unless they change their zoning laws to fit the federal government's demands. So what you have, I mean, I've been watching this for years in Westchester, coming from New York. They want low-income housing built in a neighborhood. Well, I'm ending that rule. I'm taking it out. So I spoke with Ben Carson the other day. We're going to be taking it out. I've watched that whole thing go, and now they want to make it twice as bad in the suburbs. In the suburbs. Mothers aren't happy about that. Fathers aren't happy about that. They worked hard to buy a house, and now they're going to watch the housing values drop like a rock, and that has happened. Drop like a rock. So we're not going to do that. We're going to do the exact opposite. Probably there has never been a time, and this is just a few, it's much worse than that. We did this very quickly. It's probably never been a time when candidates are so different. We want law and order. They don't want law and order. We want strong, closed borders with people able to come in through merit, through a legal process. They don't want to have any borders at all. They're going to rip down the wall. It was hard to get that built, and now it's almost completed. It'll be completed by a little after the end of the year. They want to rip it down, and it's had such an impact. It's incredible. It stops trafficking, human trafficking of women and children, but women mostly. Human trafficking, one of the worst things ever, all at a level that it's never been at because of the internet. You think of it as an ancient statement. You wouldn't think that's possible today, but it's human trafficking of women and children. And they want to let that continue. The wall has stopped it so much because they will go over to a section where there aren't people, not an entry point, and they'll make a left into the United States. They're on their way. They can't do that anymore. We have a 30-foot wall that goes 6 feet into the ground. It stops a lot of the tunneling because they're pretty good at tunnels. But we watch the tunnels, so we have equipment for that. But you can't make a left anymore and come into the United States loaded up with human traffic. So they want to take down the wall. They want to have open borders. Think of open borders today, though, with the pandemic. I mean, the timing is sort of interesting, but with the pandemic. So there's never been a time when two candidates were so different. I mean, I've seen races where it's like the same exact platforms. I'm even talking about essentially Democrat, Republican. There's not that much difference. There's a little difference, but there's not much. You choose one because you like the way they look. You like the way they sound. You like the way they talk. You like something about one and you don't like the other. But there's never been a difference. Here's one of the greatest differences. This is without question the single biggest difference if you want law and order. For instance, I enacted recently when I saw all that was going on with federal monuments. We don't have the right to do states, although we're trying to find it. But with the monuments where they wanted to rip down Andrew Jackson, they wanted to rip down George Washington. They were actually heading over to the Jefferson Memorial, if you can believe that. But this has been going on, and I found an act that we've used, and we have many, many people in jail right now. Many, many people in jail all over the country because they tried to destroy or in some cases got it down, a federal statue or monument. We haven't had anybody making a move since I enacted this. I signed an executive order a couple of weeks ago, and it says very simply, 10 years in jail. You do it, 10 years in jail. The amazing part is we were able to catch everybody because thanks to all of you on television, we appreciate it. But we have their pictures. We have the man standing on Andrew Jackson's horse. We have the man standing by General George Washington. We have everybody standing. They were going to go for the Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln, standing with a young man who was being freed. And we said, we're going to do something. We can't let this happen. Now, it could be removed at some point. You go through a process, a legal process, go through Congress, whatever. I understand that. At the same time, some people like these statues and monuments, but it can be removed, but you have to go through a legal process. So they were going to have 20 to 25,000 people that night. Nobody showed up. Nobody. You know that because you were disappointed to see that. The next night, I believe 22 people showed up. They said, we're going to make it Friday night instead. And 22 people showed up. 4 were actually arrested because we have pictures of them knocking down other statues. So they're in jail now. So there has never been an election where we've had this kind of difference. We want strong borders. Without borders, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. Without borders, you don't have a country. They don't want to have borders. They want to have open borders. It's radical left, and it'll destroy our country. 20 years ago, Venezuela was a very rich country, one of the richest anywhere. Per capita, one of the richest, tremendous oil reserves. Now they don't have water. They don't have